Welcome back you mongrels to another Fudge Reviews. It is I, the Canadian fuck who can't decide on a name for his channel, and today's episode will be a review on my top favorite MBT in game. And it is none other than the Leopard 2K. It sits right after the Leopard, lots of numbers and letters at 8.7 and right before the Leopard 2 a 4. Let's get right into it. The Leopard 2K is one hella speedy boy. If you thought that some tanks of its class were fast, such as the KPZ/MBT-70, in which they use the same engine, because joint programs for the MBT and KPZ, so Germany just took the engine from it and glued it into the 2K. Prepare your ass for this fucker, because it's quite the fast one. It has a 1500 horse thingy engine, and with a weight of 50 flat tons, and with a horse shit per ton of a whopping 30, the Leopard 2K has a top speed of 70 km per hour both forwards and backward. Can reach these speeds rather easily both on and off-road, and you'll manage a pace of 40 to 50 km an hour off-road, which enables you to bum rush positions early game and take them as your own, flanking people as extremely easily as you can back out of botched attacks with a reverse gear faster than Hitler ordering paper divisions around in early 1945 and then moving to a hidden position in hopes of your opponent not realizing where you went. The tank also has neutral steer, which is fast as fuck on pretty much all terrain. However, as usual on ground that is even a slight incline, the tank tends to have a stroke trying to find out what the fuck it needs to do in order to right itself.
This is unacceptable! Bosh!
Which isn't much of a problem if your driver knows what he's doing. In essence, the mobility is superb on this German go-kart hooped up on the finest crack cocaine, so mobility is a godsend. What about armor? Well, you've probably hit your head real hard if you think that this thing has much armor at all, with a Volkswagen Beetle probably having more armor than this wedge-nose tank. The frontal thickness on the UFP is 50mm on the first plate, angled at 72 degrees, with around 155mm of effective thickness, and the second plate is 35mm thick at an angle of 80 degrees with over 175mm of effective thickness. The LFP is angled at 62 degrees with an effective thickness of 122mm. Your hull sides are about as sturdy as wet paper, at 29 to 19 on the lower half, and from 12 to 8 and to 22 on the upper half, with some spaced armor consisting of 40mm of fucking air, then to 30mm of RHA. I won't even bother with the tank's ass as it's basically the same. Now we move on to the monstrosity of a turret. This fucknut has your front turret sides are 38mm at odd angles, and your turret sides are 16 to 12, and the mantlet is 33, but with some plates behind offering some protection. I will roll a clip of me hovering over the plates, so you can see for yourself. Will this stop any shells from penetrating you? You might be asking. Well, yes and no, my dear viewer. This armor may not protect you 100% of the time, just like the judicial system. Your tank's roof is 20mm across the board, so you have limited protection against hellers with large caliber weapons. The Leopard also lacks any form of blowout panels, so once you get hit in a rack of your 120mm sausages, prepare for some fireworks. Your turret rotation stock is 23.6 degrees per second, and with the horizontal drive mod is 28 degrees per second, and with a totally beefed up crew, is 40 degrees a deck, and vertical is rather poor at 11 degrees stock with a fresh crew, and 14 with the elevation mod, and with the maximum crew, can go to 20 degrees a second. Your base reload is 8.7 seconds with a fresh crew, and with a maximum out crew, can go down to 6.7 seconds. Which is quite poor compared to other MBTs of the battle ratings you'll commonly be fighting at, such as 10.0 to 10.7. Because up tiers are very frequent, so only shoot when you absolutely know if you're gonna hit and do damage, because the chance of the enemy shooting at you and doing considerable damage to you before you retaliate is high, as you represent a massive fuck of target. your elevation and depression goes from 20 degrees to -9 respectively, which is okay, but not the best, but it is definitely manageable. Speaking of that, your survivability once being penned is pretty low as your turret is incredibly cramped, and 3 of the 4 crew are in the turret with the diver, gunner, and commander all being in line with each other to the right hand side of the vehicle. So if you're facing this thing, aim to the left side if it's facing you. The Leopard 2K has 2 ammo racks, one to the left of the turret, and one behind a massive fuel tank to the left beside the driver. The turret rack is of 11 shells total, and the other 30 shells are in the before mentioned hull. Speaking of shells, you have to. Before we get into that, I feel I should mention that the 2K only has NVDs, so you're at a disadvantage compared to some vehicles around your British rail that do have thermals like the Vickers Mark 7, AMX-40, the Challenger Mark 3 to name a few, although it did have thermals for like a week, then Gaijin dropped them from it faster than the Soviets trying to run to Berlin in 1945. To be fair, it was only a prototype, so for it to only have NVDs makes sense to me, although I don't like it very much. Your 2 shell options are a Heat FS penning 480mm at all ranges at 0 degrees, and the shell you should main, the 13 PFSDS as a tier 1 mod, and I suggest that after parts and FPE it pens 393mm at 10 meters, and 384 at 500 meters, both at 0 degrees. The dart has a crazy muzzle velocity of 1650 meters a second. Combined with the laser rangefinder, you have yourself a very potent sniper. I would recommend taking a 25 shell load, 23 Deutsch Marks 13s and 2 of the 12 Heat FS. There's more to this tank than ya think. Do you see something on this vehicle that's rather peculiar? Is it the angular shapes, or is it that thick ass it has? Well, it's neither. It's the 20mm anti, basically everything RH202, but on a pintle mount that's about as tall as a CN tower in Toronto. That gives your position away almost always if you're behind a rock that isn't tall enough, so it's both a blessing and a hassle. It's perfect for knocking out barrels, tracks, blinding enemies and killing anything airborne if you have the lead down. And for some reason, it's controlled by the gunner, and not the commander, whereas on the KPZ, the 20 is commandeered by the commander. Oh well.
It works. It just works.
As we discussed the armor, the gun and the mobility, now let's move on to the playstyle, crew skills and what you should unlock for mods. If you possess a brain, you will have come to the conclusion that there are 2 playstyles available. They are sniping and flanking. You do not have sufficient armor like some of your counterparts for CQC, but you have crazy maneuverability and speed to run circles around your dumbass opponents. Or if you prefer a more defensive way to play, sniping is your answer. Although I can only recommend this if you have the dart unlocked, as the heat is rather useless versus some opponents' frontal yet ranges you cannot accurately hit weak points, such as the T-72B, or anything with a fuck ton of ERA. Crew skills can be thrown into tank driving for maximum tank control, agility so your crew replace positions faster, vitality so Hans 1 through 4 can survive something bigger than a nerf dart, targeting and range finding so you can get more hacks, reloading and leadership to get some more hacks. Modification should go to parts, FPE, then the dart round, then go for the adjustment of fire, elevation mechanism, horizontal drive, smoke grenades, crew replenishment, then the laser rangefinder. Mobility mods aren't really necessary, as even stock your tank performs rather nicely aside the neutral steer. That is very sluggish stock. That was the order I did it in. However, that is simply what I did, and if you feel like you wish to do otherwise, that is okay, for it is your game experience. And I can merely only give my suggestions. I say that about covers it. I give the Leopard 2K a 4 out of 5 on the Fudge scale. I hope you enjoyed, and subscribe or else.